record.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tonight we are talking marketing health check.
We are.
So I will hand it over to yourself, Ange.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight, as Rochelle said, we're going to do a marketing health check. So I'm going to take you through the very basics and starting point of marketing. So I view marketing as a bit of a house. We've got the foundation, which is the basics, what we're going to talk about tonight. Then we've got the tactics that come out of the strategy that you create from the foundation. And then you've got the bells and whistles like automation and things like that as the roof. So I will kick off.
And my apologies, I did forget to say at the start that what we'll do is we'll hold off questions till the end, till after Ange has done her presentation. And then feel free at the end, feel free to either unmute yourself or pop your questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's, yeah. I'm going to keep it quite brief. I really want to help you guys tonight with questions. So I'm not going to do a death by PowerPoint presentation. It'll be quite brief and then we can get into some questions. So as just a brief intro, as Rochelle said, my name is Ange. I have worked in marketing in a number of different industries, in a number of different organisations. I've worked both for other people and for myself. I've launched several businesses. As I said, I went to Melbourne Business School. And basically, my reason for keeping marketing super simple is because there are so many people out there who offer massive, ridiculous programs that cost a lot of money but don't get results. So I'm all about bringing it back to basics, making sure you get the foundational things right and building from there. And that works really well with small businesses. So to start off with your stereotypical question, what is marketing? What do we mean when we talk about marketing? There's so many. Rochelle sent me the questions that you guys have submitted before the webinar, or some of them, and it's really clear that there's a lot of confusion around what is marketing. So there's lots of buzzwords, there's lots of you should be doing this, you should be doing that. But tonight we're going to clear up what I think marketing is. And I go by the KISS principle. And I don't like calling people stupid, so I keep it simple and short. So for me, marketing is what problem do you solve? Who has that problem? What words solve their problem? And where are their eyeballs? So these, no matter whether you talk about the 5 Ps or the 7 Ps or any of the marketing principles, they are covered by these 4 points in some way. So we're going to go quickly through these, what they mean, and then I'll give you some do's and don'ts for each of them, and then we'll get stuck into some questions so that we can get really specific. Right, so knowing what problem you solve, and I'm talking both to product and service-based businesses here, whatever you sell solves a problem. It doesn't matter if you're selling a fitness program or a fidget spinner. You know those fidget spinners? If you're selling one of those, you solve a problem, no matter how meaningless it is. So once you know what that problem is that you solve, you now have a framework to identify who has the problem, what words to use, and where the eyeballs are. So to work out what problem you solve, think about what the benefits and outcomes are of your product and service. Benefits or outcomes, they're the same thing. So what happens for the client, the customer, when they work with you, when they buy your product? What happens for them? Do they sleep better? Does their health improve? Do their kids leave them alone at night because they've got a fidget spinner? Do they know how to cook properly. What benefit do they get from working with you? What results do they achieve? There's a few mistakes that people make when working out what problem they solve, sorry. I've listed some here. People are often very vague, or think that their problem or service solves every problem that their market could possibly have. Or they focus on the features of their product rather than the benefits. So let's take a car, for example, and this is probably an analogy that's probably going to come up quite a few times. Rochelle will like that with race chicks. So take a car, for example. The features are petrol or diesel, X litres to a kilometre, to 100 kilometres. The colour, the stereo system, leather seats. They tell me about the car, but they don't tell me what it does for me. So the benefits and outcomes are, it can save me money because it's an electric vehicle, not a petrol vehicle, and it's saving the environment as well. So I can feel good about that. If I buy a sports car, the outcome is I can get from A to B faster and look great while doing it. Don't forget about emotional benefits as well when you're talking to your customers, as well as functional benefits. Yeah, so it's very easy to focus on features, but it is important at some stage in the sales process to talk to the features of the product, but you need to lead with the benefits and outcomes, and you really need to, that's what your target market's interested in, so you need to focus on that. And so the flip side of that is, do clearly identify the benefits and outcomes your clients will achieve, and be specific about them. Don't tell me I'm going to feel better. Tell me I'll have more energy. I'll be more alert during the day. My mind will be clearer. Things like, be quite specific about what you deliver. If you're not specific, it makes me worry that you're not really certain that you can deliver what you're saying you will. Okay, so target market. Now, I kept this really brief because there was originally going to be a target market session in a couple of weeks, but that has now been changed. So if there's questions about target market, we can address them in the questions. So once we know what problem we solve, we can figure out who has that problem. Again, don't make the mistake of thinking that everybody has it. Not everybody has the problem that you solve. Not everyone is your target market. But once we know who has the problem, we're going to know what words to put around it, what words are going to resonate with them, because we'll know what words that solve the problem. And once we know who, we'll know where their eyeballs are as well. If our target audience is mums, we're probably not going to spend a huge amount of time on LinkedIn. I'm going to use sweeping generalizations tonight. It's really difficult to be specific when I don't know the businesses that are present. So please don't take offense at any generalizations that I make, but that is one example. Likewise, if your target audience is career professionals, you're probably not going to spend a huge amount of time on TikTok because their eyeballs are not there. So these are examples of why you need to know who you're targeting so you can go where they are. So just some tips to think about when you're thinking about who you're targeting. People get scared when I say target because they think they're going to lose clients. That's not the case at all. Everyone is not your market. So your target is not your market. You will pick up people outside your target market, but also everyone shouldn't fit into your target market. If they do, you're not targeted enough. try not to have too many targeted audiences. So I've worked with businesses who pull out a 3-page document of all their target audiences. It's too much. Be niche well and get to know those people really, really well, and then expand out from there. Having too many target audiences dilutes your message. And another big mistake that I see a lot is using your family and friends as research for your target market. This is never a good idea, even if they are your ideal customer. They are emotionally invested in your success, and they will not give you the information that you need to make quality decisions about your audience. What you do need to do is talk to your current customers. Find out who they are, why they purchase from you, why they keep coming back, why they made their first purchase, what prompted them to make their first purchase. If you don't have current customers, if you're just starting out, you're a brand new business, talk to people who think you might be your target market, that you would like to work with, and find out about them, and test some of your thoughts on them and see if it resonates with them. If you do have current customers, sorry, I jumped around a bit there, my apologies. You can use data from previous purchases to seek out patterns. So have a look at your customer data. Are there people who are purchasing the same things over and over again? Do they have similar, does that group of people have similar features? You need quite a big database to start to define good patterns, but any data that you have on your customer every data point is valuable. So have a look at it, use it. Test different messages in your content. When you're creating content, be it on social media or your website or anything, test different messages. Monitor what gets a response, what doesn't get a response, what gets lots of engagement, what gets shared, and what just falls flat. That will tell you a lot about who your target audience is as well. And this is particularly relevant to service-based businesses. It is also relevant to product-based businesses, particularly high-value products, but service-based businesses, talk to people who didn't buy from you. If you go through a proposal process with someone and then at the end they choose not to buy from you, that's fine, but find out why. Ask them to be honest with you about why. Sometimes it'll be price, but sometimes you'll get valuable insights that will tell you things you can maybe tweak that will. I need to back this up with a caveat. If they didn't buy from you, but they're not your ideal client, they're not someone you want to work with, don't worry about that process. I should put that in the slide. This is only if you're talking to someone who you would love to work with, who is your ideal client, and they don't buy from you, talk to them to find out why. But I'm in service-based businesses, and there's so many times I work with clients or work with people, and I know before I've signed up that they're going to be difficult, and I choose not to work with them. So don't worry about following up those kinds of people. We've all met them, I'm sure. Okay. So once we know what problem we solve and who has that problem, we can know what words we can use that will resonate with them and solve their problems. So how do you figure out how to speak in a way that resonates with your target audience? Again, I've got some do's and don'ts here. Again, we're back to don't focus on the features of your product and service. Focus very much on the benefits and outcomes. The features are important, but the benefits and outcomes are far more likely to capture someone's attention. Don't talk about yourself, your business. It is important to include your about story, but people are far more worried about what your business will do for them than the story of your business. So don't be shady, don't not have an about page, but don't make all your communications about, at Unboxed, we care about this, we do this, we do. My clients don't care. What they want to know is what working with me will do for them. And again, don't use formats or platforms that your target audience doesn't use or want. So again, to take the audience of mums, for example, if your target audience is young mums looking for pictures of baby clothes, don't be doing blogs on LinkedIn. It never ceases to amaze me how many times an example like that is relevant, that people are using blogs when they should be using videos, using pictures when they should be using blogs. And yeah, you really need to be putting words in a format that your target audience wants and uses. So do focus on the benefits and outcomes. Try to use a consistent tone in all of your communications. Now, this is getting a little bit into copywriting, but if you're generally lighthearted, keep it lighthearted in all your communications. If it's a more academic or professional tone, maintain that across your communications. Ken, if I can use you as an example for a second, Ken has a finance background, so probably a light-hearted conversational tone won't always work. We're talking about finances, and that calls for a professional tone. So be consistent across your communications. Use words and terms that your target market uses. Again, I'm just trying to think of an example. Like me with marketing, for example, if I'm using all the buzzwords of segmentation and CPC and CAC and customer lifetime value and all, my clients are going to get lost in what so I need to use terms that they're using and not dumb it down, but just be clear with them. And this again follows into the KISS principle. Don't use dianation when nap will suffice. Dianation is the long word for a extended sleep taken in the afternoon. So don't complicate things. Don't use fancy words when nap will suffice. And yes, there's a disclaimer there. We wholeheartedly support the use of naps in business, especially in lockdown. Okay, so the final point is where are their eyeballs? So now that we know what problem we solve, who has that problem, and the words that solve that problem, we can identify where their eyeballs are and put those words in front of their eyeballs. Oh, sorry. There we go. Here's a couple of don'ts and do's. Again, don't put your energy into one channel. This comes with the caveat that if you're a small business, it is exhausting to be across multiple channels, and I understand that, and we can talk about how to get around that in the questions if you like. But be really careful about investing everything into one channel. I worked with a business that was getting about 80 leads a week from Facebook, and Facebook changed their algorithm and they dropped to 1 or 2 leads a week, but they had no other channel activated, so it took them a long time to build up. to that. So don't be that horror story. Again, don't use platforms that your target market isn't using. Back to the mums as a target market, they're probably not on LinkedIn all that much. So don't invest a lot of time in LinkedIn. They probably are on Facebook and Instagram. So probably they're platforms to investigate. And again, if they're looking for videos, don't do blogs. If they're looking for images, don't do, if they're looking for blogs, don't do images. It's very, very much remembering who you're talking to and making it really easy and desirable for them to access your information. So I've used Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram quite a bit, but it's really important that you think outside that paradigm. There are multiple ways of marketing outside that triangle, and it's really important that you investigate and are aware of those. One of those ways is to nurture relationships with organisations that work with your target market but are not your competition. They're called partnerships or joint ventures, or they can be formal, informal. Generally, they need to be something that brings benefit to both parties, not just you. So you need to be able to offer them something. An example of this is, some of the partnerships that I have. So I'm a marketer. I have a very valuable partnership with a web designer because she has people come to her who want a fancy schmancy website but have no strategy behind it. So she says, yeah, sure, I'll help you with the website, but first you need to talk to Ange to get some help on your marketing. So we work with the same people, but we're not competitors, and we've both sent each other quite a bit of business. So that's a really valuable thing to think about. Who else is working with my target audience who is not a competitor? Use a mix of organic and paid content. There are benefits and drawbacks to both, but using a mix is, again, if you're only using paid content and for some reason someone changes their algorithm or the magazine closes down or whatever platform you're using becomes defunct, you need a good bank of organic content to back you up, and it's the same in vice versa. Organic content is a slow burn, so you need some paid content to put a bit of fuel in the tank and get some leads in. And one big mistake that I often see is people posting content and getting really good response and then ignoring the people who respond. So if I go onto someone's Facebook page and there's a post that they've posted, or LinkedIn, and there's no responses from the original poster, I'll assume they're not really interested. They're just using an automated scheduler, and once it's posted, they haven't bothered checking in on it. If you're posting content for your target audience, you need to be engaging with them when they respond. And that is the information portion of the evening. I decided to keep it nice and brief so that we've got heaps of time for questions. Just before we hit the questions, I want to, I probably won't get to everything tonight. I'm more than happy to talk to people. My email address is on the screen there. More than happy to talk to people. If you drop me an email, we can set up a quick phone call and address your concerns more specifically. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions. So Rochelle, should we just throw to the group, or do you want to?
Yeah, definitely. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to unmute and we can go through those.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I've just got a question. I think I did send that as well. Regarding that, I'm a wholesaler. I've got a few businesses, but one of them is an ice cream business. I do wholesale. and I just want to know how do I advertise that? Like, I have been putting images of, you know, sexy, mouth-watering ice cream. I have been kind of putting educational recipes, you know, on the website, on the Instagram channel, but it's, because that doesn't directly go to sale, it just doesn't generate, you know, what I want from those marketing that I do. So I want to know how to connect these two together.
Yeah. So who is your target market?
Well, basically they are mums, young mums that they go to the supermarket and they purchase, you know, the ice cream for the family. But also I do have the younger generation where, like, the working, you know, girls and boys who just, you know, at the weekend just pop in and just want to indulge themselves and want to try something different and unique.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're an ice cream wholesaler who sells in supermarkets?
Not supermarkets. Now I've got like a small grocery store.
Right.
So and I do sell to hotels, which they're going to serve, but it's not going to show that it's my ice cream, and restaurants as well. So they're not going to display that it is my brand. It's their, you know, ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite difficult to get it out to people that, you know, this is the ice cream, go and try it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your question, Rayhan, is one that I'm going to have to think a little bit more about. It is,
Okay.
Wholesaling is difficult.
Yep.
Particularly with social media.
Yep.
Like you say, because I'd need a little more information in terms of how the hotels present it and
Yep.
Things like that to be able to answer specifically. Because, like, off the top of my head, what I'm hearing is your target market is outlets that will sell your ice cream wholesale, not the end user. But targeting them is a whole different ballgame.
Yep, absolutely. And that is the main problem, because no matter how much I put it out there, there are not, like, at the moment, the supermarkets don't have the ice cream. So I can't tell them to just go and buy it. There are specific grocery stores and boutique cafes that have it. So it's not very broad.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you drop me an email, we can book in a time to have a quick chat about it a bit more. I'm sorry, I was telling Rochelle before we started that I don't like to give specific information or advice without a lot of information.
Sure.
Because that could potentially, you know, cause harm to your business, or so wholesale is a different kettle of fish, and I will need to think about that a little bit more and have more information before I can give you a clear...
No problem. That's fine. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
This is not related to the ice cream. I've recently started a photography business, which is product, you know, and e-commerce photography, and also food styling. And it's quite new. And I just want to know, how do I find my target audience, you know, in that category?
So you do food styling photography, and what was the other kind of photography, sorry?
Product photography.
Product photography.
Yeah.
All right. So for the product photography, food styling I'll have to think about. I would suggest, though, off the top of my head, there'll be some overlap between your ice cream business and the food styling photography business, particularly if you're working with local cafes. But the product photography target small e-commerce shops. And I know this because I am one of them. I have a little side business selling cruelty-free bath and body products, and
nice.
photography is a big issue for me. So yeah, we can talk in more detail about how to go about that, but that would be sit down and think about who needs product photography. And that's where you start, but we can talk about that in more detail. I'm sorry I can't be more specific.
No, that's all good. Thank you so much.
With not much information, I don't want to give you detailed advice.
Sure, thank you.
No worries. Was there anyone else who had a question?
Yeah, I do.
Jessica?
I haven't got a business yet. I'm planning to open a business next year. I am a physiotherapist, and I really have this idea of integrating a Pilates studio and hydrotherapy and doing physiotherapy and a gym in the same center. At the moment, there is nothing really like it. So it's really hard to find a target audience because it's so broad. I mean, it's injuries, it's surgery, it's NDIS system. So it's really hard to find a niche. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, it can be really hard to find a niche when you provide a lot of services. My recommendation always when providing services is the things that you mentioned there are going to have things in common. So you've got recovery from injuries, recovery from surgery, NDIS. So what I would do, and what I have done in my businesses, and because marketing, for example, can be very, very broad and general. And so I've had to go through a really, really arduous process of narrowing down what I can do. So I would suggest you do a similar thing, is write down everything that you can possibly do. And group them into categories, because there will be categories. You'll start to see a pattern emerge. I get a few different colored pens and write everything down, and then I circle everything in the recovery, injury, surgery, all that sort of thing, that sort of category in green, and then everything in NDIS in blue. So what else? Physio, hydrotherapy,
Pilates, and a gym. So currently you have you have private practices, which everyone knows. They can go to a private practice and have hands-on physio, and they will review some exercises, and some of them will have a bit of Pilates. Or if you have surgery, you go to a rehab hospital, and then you go to outpatients in the rehab hospital. But this is kind of a hybrid between them.
Yeah, so I'd divide up. So from what I've heard now, so you've got recovery, NDIS, and strength. So that covers the gym, the Pilates. So I would work on distilling everything that you offer into a few categories and start targeting from there.
Okay.
It's a long process. It's not something you'll do in 15 minutes.
Well, I have been thinking about it for a long time, and I still haven't got it yet.
Again, I'm happy to have a phone call with you. If you drop me an email, I'll make sure that everyone gets my email. I'm happy to have a phone call with you to go through it in a bit more detail. But that's what I would do. I would write down everything that you offer and then distill it into categories, 3 or 4 categories.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Thank you.
No worries. I hope that helped a little bit.
Yeah, I think it did.
It's overwhelming, I know, when you feel like you offer a lot of things. It's very overwhelming to go, oh, just 3 or 4 categories. I understand the overwhelm.
I have been reading in the internet about marketing and how to find target audience and all that sort of thing. But really, when I try to just put it into one, I can't because we have such a broad spectrum of patients that is really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. You don't have to only offer one thing. You don't have to say that you offer one thing. You don't have to solve one problem, but you do need to so your goal when you are doing anything, when you're writing anything, when you're thinking about what it is that you're going to offer, your goal is that someone will read it and go, yes, that's me. That's your goal to get to that point. So if you are being super broad and we offer everything, no one is going to say, yes, that's me. So that's why and when we speak, I'll do the same. I'll push you really hard to distill it down to 3 or 4 key categories that you work with, or 3 or 4 key benefits that you offer.
Okay.
We can talk about it in more detail.
Thank you.
No worries. Did anyone else have a question?
We've had one come through the chat, which is what channels can restaurants use for marketing outside of Facebook and Instagram?
Restaurants.
They're throwing the curveball questions at you tonight.
They really are. They're really specific, which is fantastic because people are thinking about them, but without knowing a lot about the business, it's really, really hard to answer meaningfully and specifically.
Industry magazines or something, maybe?
It depends. So it would depend on who their target market is, who they're wanting to attract to the restaurant. So I live in an area where there's a lot of restaurants, and the audience for Frankie's Cafe is going to be very different to the audience for the Thai restaurant in Middle Park, which is fantastic, but very, very different vibe. So if their target audience is reading industry magazines, absolutely, I would go there. Again, depending on what type of restaurant, you could approach, obviously not at the moment with pandemic, but approach workplaces for functions if you've got that kind of space or style of dining.
Fine dining restaurant targeting families in a West.
Oh, fine dining restaurant targeting families. All right. So I'd probably pair up with schools in the area and maybe become part of their fete that they have, sponsor their fete, have a stand at their fete. I'd get involved in the local, maybe sponsor a sporting team. So if your target is families, go where families are. So that's schools, sports, social organizations, social groups. This is what I was talking about with the partnerships. So go to organizations that are working with your target market but are not competitors. So they're the places I'd look at building relationships with. Yeah, that's where I'd start.
Ange, it's Ken. I was just wondering, how do you generally charge for your services? So if people wanted to engage you that are on the call, or just generally, what's the process, and how do you charge, and what's the cost, and what's the methodology? Can you share that with the team?
Sure. So I charge on a project basis. I don't charge per hour because I think that creates distrust between myself and my client. I get to know my client or my potential client really well before I work with them. And I make sure that what I'm going to do with them is really customized to their situation. I don't believe that one size fits all. Just the example we've had here, ice cream wholesaler versus fine dining restaurant, they need different things. And they're going to be at different places in their marketing strategy and things like that. So I would look really at where they are now, where they want to go, and what it's going to take to get them there. And I have 3, 6, and 12 month options. I always put together 3, 6, and 12 month options. They start at, off the top of my head, I think it's $3,500, and go up from there. I don't have pre-priced packages because I don't work one size fits all. So that is how if someone wanted to work with me, they contact me through my website. I go through a get to know you process, and we go from there. I like to keep it very relaxed and very relational. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so on a small business that had, say, a turnover of, I don't know, up to $500,000, it might cost them $10,000 or $12,000 a year base level. Is that what you sort of said? $3,000 a quarter, $3,500 a quarter?
Potentially, yes, depending on what they wanted to do. And that would be, based on how much if they want me, 2 days a week, that's going to be a very different cost to, I'll check in with you once a fortnight. So I apologize for being vague. But yes, that would be a good starting point.
It's kind of related to a question that was asked actually, in terms of how much should a marketing budget be? Is it percentage of sales revenue? It's, is there a percentage that we should be putting aside each month?
It's, there are people out there who will say there is. Mm-hmm. It's very, very much based on what you want to achieve, what your budget is, how quickly you want to achieve it. So it's, again, the way I work, I'm really, really careful to scale everything up or down to the business that I'm working with. I don't believe in going into massive debt for marketing. I think that's a really dangerous game to play. But the reality is, good marketing does cost money. And you do have to spend money to get results. That's just the reality that we're in. It's the reality we've all been in. You have to spend money to make money.
That's it.
But there's no hard and fast rule on that. It's kind of like we were talking about before. If you say to someone, I want to buy a car, okay, well, for what purpose? You know, city or country, family or sports car, like what do you want?
Sure.
Yeah.
So are there any basic measurement options to measure ROI?
Again, depends on what channel you're working with. Things like Facebook and Google will give you a comprehensive, this was your spend and this is what you got for it.
Okay.
You can't always measure ROI in marketing because use this webinar, for example. Say I'm doing this for my own business, and it's cost me X number of hours to prepare and everything like that. And then in 12 months, Jody suddenly contacts me, but I don't remember that Jody was on the webinar. So that's an ROI directly related back to this, but I'm not going to attribute it to that. So that's an extreme example, but it's not always possible to attribute. And this,
and it's true actually, because you could have like an amazing, marketing program, but then say the customer service teams let you down, or, distribution or something like that. So in terms of that, it's you know, you've got to be able to measure it the whole way through the.
Absolutely. And marketing is just getting it out there. Closing a sale and marketing are different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, and it's a constant battle between you know, accounts and marketing.
Yeah.
But what did you get for this? I don't know, but it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No worries. So in terms of, say, the health check, do you recommend, you know, for those those fundamentals that we do a bit of an audit in terms of, you know, have we defined, you know, what the problems that we solve, and is all our collateral saying the same type of thing, and, you know, who has that problem, and just doing a bit of an audit, you know, like a health check on everything that we've got.
Absolutely. So no matter the size of your business, it's really important to constantly come back to your target market and knowing what problem you solve, who you solve it for, the words that you put around it, and where the eyeballs are. Everything you do should always come back to that.
Yeah.
Small businesses are notoriously bad at not doing this, because the constant pressure to get sales in can be overwhelming, and the thought of narrowing anything down or it seems scary. Some big businesses aren't great at it either, but I did work in a business that every piece of collateral we put out, we took it through this program, or these steps, making sure that everything lined up to who we were talking to. So absolutely, I would recommend it's just become a core part of your marketing whenever you think, what channels should I be using? Well, where are your target market's eyeballs? Who am I talking to? Well, what problem do you solve? And yeah, constantly bring it back to those. It's much easier to remember that than it is 7 Ps or.
Yeah, true. And yeah, do it kind of campaign by campaign.
Yep, absolutely. Or even piece of collateral. And the thing I always, when I'm creating content for my audience, the thing I make sure that every sentence solves a problem, and if it doesn't, it gets deleted.
Okay. That would probably take me a week.
Yeah.
It's though, wouldn't you? Once you're in that mindset of, you know, maybe it's a shift in thinking, then
constant, because it stops you thinking about yourself and starts thinking about who am I talking to?
Yeah, fantastic. All right, has anyone else got any other questions? I've got one here through the chat. Has anyone got one that they'd like to ask?
Oh, just before you do that, I just thought the one that came through before the webinar of digital versus traditional marketing in a pandemic, what will be more valuable to driving people to your business? So I spoke to Ken about this on LinkedIn earlier in the week, but I just wanted to clarify a couple of things about digital marketing, if that's okay. Have we got time? Yeah. Going for time? Yeah. So the digital marketing has become synonymous with marketing, and it's really important to remember that it's actually just a channel, not just a channel, it's a huge channel, but it is a channel. It is not an entire marketing program. It encompasses a lot more than just the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn paradigm that I spoke about earlier. And yeah, it's really important not to put digital marketing and traditional marketing as opposition. It's kind of like marketing's here and then digital marketing sits within that. And it's really important to remember that, because not doing the traditional marketing things can cost you a lot of opportunity. So I just wanted to clarify that. So to answer the question, digital versus traditional, which is going to drive traffic, it depends on who your target market is and where their eyeballs are. That is, who are you talking to and where are their eyeballs? If their eyeballs are in your more traditional marketing, then go there. If they're online, if they're on Facebook, be there.
Okay.
Is that simple and that complicated?
Sure. I think we've got one last question. Is influencer marketing worth it for a new restaurant?
Oh, I've never used an influencer. I don't know anyone who has had a good experience with an influencer. If you choose the right influencer, yes. Choosing the right influencer is a whole different story. And that can be very, very difficult to do. And I've heard so many difficult stories of people who've spent tens of thousands of dollars and the influencer has not delivered. I feel like for a new restaurant, the amount that an influencer would cost, you could probably use that same amount of money and get a whole lot more exposure. An influencer is very general marketing. They're not necessarily, so restaurants, and one thing I didn't cover off in this is location. So location, bricks and mortar businesses, if your influencer is going to go potentially nationwide or even internationally, do you want to pay for all those people to see your product that they can't get to? I would probably recommend, and I say this not knowing who the influencer is that you want to work with or anything like that, but I would probably recommend investigating what else you could do with that money in the local area to get a solid customer base before you go that big.
Good advice.
That would be my thought.
Right, this question, I think it's going to be a bit hard to answer because, you know, all the other ones have been so...
Yeah.
So
way to end the evening.
Businesses in general likely bounce back by Christmas in Sydney and Melbourne.
Impossible to answer. No one can answer that at the moment. Yeah. It depends on what type of business you have. Some businesses are thriving at the moment, and some have been absolutely decimated. I would need to know what type of business that you have, but there's no way of answer. No one can answer that, and anyone who tells you that they can, I would be suspicious of.
Yeah, it's definitely an unknown, unfortunately.
Yeah,
which I think is the uncomfortable
yeah, people. Yeah, and I understand asking it and wanting that certainty, but yeah, it's unfortunately, I wish I could say yes, but yeah, there's no way of knowing. Oh, and Rayhan, I love your lipstick. Thank you. I was feeling a bit nervous before I started, so I thought you can't feel nervous with the red lip, so
that's it.
Went the power red.
All right, anyone got a last question for Ange? No?
Thank you, Ange. Much appreciated.
No, thank you very much.
I hope it was helpful, and
thank you, Ange.
If anyone didn't get my email address, I'm sure Rochelle will be happy to send it through.
Yes, please.
I'm happy to hear from any of you to have a chat. Ken, sorry I didn't say that. Drop me a line. You've got my details. I'm happy to have a further chat if you wanted to.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, Ange. That was great. Remember, if you do have any other business questions, you'd like some advice, remember the Small Business Women Australia community Facebook page is there for you. There's over 3,100 small business women in that group that are fantastic to bounce ideas off, you know, to get some advice. They're really good to be able to help you with that. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you for the next Skill Up webinar, and thanks so much, Anne, for your time tonight. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Angie. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.